Banana skin, James. Scotland against Fiji.
Historically, when I was playing, yes, it was always a tough game. I'm not going to say it's an easy game because in my mind, it's like Scotland should beat Fiji. But Fiji are on a roll. Fiji have won their last 4 games on the spin. So the Pacific Nations Championship that's been in the shadows of some of the other tournaments has been played. They put 41 points on Japan, 41 points to 17. So don't worry about that, Fiji. Think about the World Cup, Fiji. Oh, my goodness me. And it could be a worry for Scotland of years gone by. And these games historically have been quite tough for Scotland. I feel as I say historically, again, you've got to remember I'm burnt in the dark ages of playing against Fijis and Samoas and Tonga. But I believe now as a team that we, take aside Edinburgh's form, take aside the fact that we had an easy summer test series, but we should be confident enough to say that we should beat Fiji. And I think Gregor's going to go full noise for it, but I think we have to respect how much better Fiji have got now. It's not as simple as saying, oh, yeah, we should win, and then we move on to South Africa next week. This is a proper test match now. Like, they've put 41 points on Japan, who are, I'm not going to say that they're no mugs, but it's Japan. They were a professional outfit only a few years ago, were winning massive test matches as well. Comfortably beat the US as well, 22 points to 3. Scotland beat the US in the summer convincingly, but the USA ran them hard in parts of that game, and then they put 50 points on Tonga as well. 50 points. So we know that Fiji can score tries. We know that they've got unbelievable specimens. A lot of it's going to come down to who's playing, like how much rugby they've played up to now, who's fit, because their team hasn't been announced yet either. But if you think about the core of that Scotland team and the form of the Glasgow players, the form of guys like Finn Russell, Rory Darge, we'll come on to Sione, Muktu-Pelotu, Blair Kinghorn playing over in Toulouse, whoever he goes on the ring, whoever goes on the wing, whether or not it be Duan van der Merwe, who we know is a test match animal, Darcy Graham, Carl Rowe. We've got some quality players now. Hugh Jones in the centre, George Horn, if he starts at scrum half as well. Matt Fagerson, you think how good he was in the final of the URC. Glasgow, current URC champions, just went down to South Africa and did a job on the Stormers there, rang the Sharks close. So this is a moment in time for Scotland now where we need to put a run of games together. Notoriously, we don't start Autumn Nation Series hard. We don't start them fast. So the way that this is kind of mapped out, it's a bit weird because we play Fiji, then South Africa, then Portugal, and then we're into the Australia game as well. But it's good that we're going to get this test match first up, which is a proper hard match to start.
And interesting, when you talk about hard matches, you talk about some of the names in the Fiji squad. And as you said, teams aren't out yet, but you've got backs like Tuasova playing. He's the size of a house. Naitha Levu's there as well, and we saw how good he was at the World Cup, and he's doing bits at Sale now as well. Randradra, he's in the squad. Botitu's an unbelievable player as well. Frank Lamani at 9. They have got threats, haven't they? And it's not just the romance of that World Cup with Fiji. They were everyone's kind of second team, weren't they? Because of how well they were playing. They obviously did a job on Australia. And they're always a second team for people because the smiles, the way they play the rugby. But like Jim said, they're a proper serious outfit now as well. And ultimately, it's going to be a physical test for Scotland, which sometimes they've come up short of old. But this Scotland team has to just go out, do a job. And we shouldn't even be thinking, in reality, of what Scotland have achieved and can achieve. People shouldn't really be thinking that this is going to be a worry that they lose the game, right? And that's not disrespecting Fiji. That's the state of how good Scotland have been and the players they've got and the success that they've built over the last few years. But it's always in the back of your mind, isn't it, that Fijians, they want to rock up. They rock up and they're just a different pedigree at times.
Well, you saw them beat England back in August 2023. Yeah, you saw Fiji in the quarterfinal against England.
Could have, should have won it. One offload.
Exactly.
One offload away from winning.
Real deal. Yeah, the real deal. And I think the thing is with this Fiji team, and I know it's the thing that's been bandied about before, because they're all playing all across the world in the Premiership, in the top 14. They don't have that joined-up approach. But, yeah, Scotland got to be on.
Were you surprised to see Sione Tuipulotu take the captain's jersey?
Ooh.
Like, how many times have they changed the captain in the past 3 years, 5 years?
Don't like that about Gregor. Never have done. I think that you need to have a captain and nail it down. I don't believe in all the vice captains and the leadership group. Again, I'm a purist. I am old school in my thinking, but I believe you should have one captain. That's what I think, and stick with it and go at least for a cycle. But I don't think that a fly half should be captain either. And I think that maybe,
I was just about to say, James, if anyone stands out to be skipper of that team, just give it Finn.
Yeah, but I don't know whether Finn performs at his very best as captain and everything that is with that. I think maybe in Gregor's mind, he wants Finn to be a bit loose. He wants him to go out. He wants him to be a bit rogue because that's how he performs at his best. Yeah. Now, would you say that Finn Russell is a natural leader and a captain?
I'd play for him. I'd play for him every day of the week.
Yeah, so would I. But I think there's again, you think of players gone by that have been in and around the captaincy. Rory Darge, Hamish Watson, Grant Gilchrist, Johnny Gray has been in that leadership group as well. That's a big thing that we have in Scotland. We always have. I'm trying to think. Greg Laidlaw, Jason White. Any other great captains that we've had where you like?
Weren't you Skips?
I was vice captain.
Okay.
Kelly as well. Kelly will hate me saying it, but I'm talking about that kind of leader of men, of leaders of all leaders. Like, we've lacked that. It's always been a thing. Oh, we're working on our leadership group. We're doing this and we're doing that. And look, don't get me wrong. I love Sione Tuipulotu. He is a fantastic player. He is probably the top 5 players in the world right now. Yeah. There's probably chat of him being the best 12 in the world right now if you've watched him in the URC and watched him for Scotland. Does that warrant you being a captain, though? Does that mean because you're the best player in a team or in the squad or in the country or in Europe, does that mean that you are then captain? I know that Anton Dupont with France is a completely different thing, all right? It's Anton Dupont. But I just don't, how many 12s in the world are there as captain?
You got to think about that relationship with the referee as well. How much contact do you have with the referee when you kind of stood out in the centres?
Oh, I don't see that as a problem. I generally don't see that as a problem.
Do you not?
That's an old school thing, Rob. You're a northerner, we can apologise.
You think of all the great captains, Alan Wynne-Jones, all the refs talk about how good a communicator he was. Sia Khaleesi, does being in the ref see
we're old school.
But I understand what you mean. But then, in defence to Sione Tuipulotu, I think the only issue we're questioning this is because his name is Sione Tuipulotu and it doesn't sound Scottish, right? I think you've got to pick a captain that's guaranteed his place in the team, which for the Scotland team, there isn't that many that you'd say are that far ahead of their competitors, right? Finn's one, Tuipulotu's another. I think Duhan van der Merwe's in it every day of the week. But then you go across, I love Jack Dempsey, but he doesn't always start, does he? For Scotland. How many of those players are nailed on to start and they're head and shoulders above their competitors in that position? And then you look at that band of players and go, well, out of the 5 or 6 or 7 that you could name as out-and-out starters, how many of them are actually leaders of men or leaders by example or leaders in terms of being able to speak to a group and energise a group? That might bring that down. So that might rule out Finn because you want Finn to be the character that Finn is. So actually, when you break it down, everything I read or see, and we've spoken to Sione Tuipulotu on here, you know him, Jim, he's a real, this is me, this is how I play, follow me into battle, and I will run into a brick wall or I will beat someone or I'll smash someone and I'll lead in that way, as well as he's a very good communicator. And 12s have to be now. 12s have to be, great communicators in attack, talking to donkeys, forwards around them and all that stuff. That they are integral to communication and how a team is cohesive. So I think the only reason people are looking at, if he was called Sean I don't know.
Tuipulotu.
No, if he was named, give me a big Scottish name, Sean McIron Brew. we wouldn't even be questioning the fact that Sione Tuipulotu is the right guy for captain, right? So,
yeah, I agree with that, but that is the thing. You have to say what everyone is thinking, and that is what they're thinking. It's rich coming from me, having played the majority of my career in England and coming up to Scotland.
You had some tartan curtains. You're all right.
Yeah, I know, and I own a Scotty dog as well. But that is the thing, and it's a story for another day, and it's a wider conversation about the pathway programme for Scotland and the lack of leaders that we have and the lack of Scottish talent, the fact that you look at a large part of that team we haven't nurtured ourselves. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I agree with you. But Rory Darge was the guy. That was it. He was like the captain. He's been carving up for Glasgow, and he probably is guaranteed his place. For me, it's undeniable. Sione Tuipulotu is Scotland's most valuable player at the minute. The conversation is whether or not he should be captain or not. And that isn't a decision for me. Greg has made that decision. But one of the Achilles heel of Greg has been not having a captain. I'm a purist and an old school romantic that your captain needs to be in on them conversations about team culture, about who should be playing, about how you should be playing. Jono during the Lions in '97, when he's in the room with Telfer and McGeechan and they're talking about what players, as opposed to Sione Tuipulotu being called up and being surprised and shocked that he's been made captain. A surprise and shock. There should be a part of you, and that's because he's humble. He's a lovely human being. And for me, when you actually look through that list, if you were to say, right, Jim, pick out 3 captains in that list. Okay, so say I was the coach who you would pick out of the list. I would go Grant Gilchrist, been captain before. Okay. Rory Darge, been captain before. Jamie Ritchie was named captain before. Finn Russell was named captain before. So we're now on to another position, another player, and Scotland's best player at the minute. He's playing better than Finn. Yeah. I know the different positions, but he's the standout player at the minute. My thing is, does that make you a captain? And look, there's no doubt about it. Sione Tuipulotu was vice-captain for Scotland. He's been in the leadership group and he's a worldie of a player. And I've got no doubt about it that all the players will follow him. And when he's singing the anthem as captain, and you never know, his brother might be in the 23 as well and his family are coming over to the game. It's amazing. Like, the guy's a legend already in Scotland. But the captaincy and leadership is another situation, another story. And I think it shows that we've got a lot of work to do with our player pathway programs and trusting players within the squad already. Like, you know, Jamie Ritchie and Rory Darge and all these lads that were made captain before.
Why has he gone away from Rory Darge?
Don't know.
Darge is vice-captain, by the way, with Finn Russell.
Yeah, I know, but
there you go.
That's not. I understand that he's vice-captain, but when he was captain, same reason. Why'd you go away from Jamie Ritchie? Like, then Jamie Ritchie wasn't getting the team. That's what I mean. And so it goes back to, he's probably sat there going, who's guaranteed their spot in the team to lead? And you've named a couple there, but you're right. It's a tough one, isn't it?
Well, he might be thinking South Africa. Okay, so would you play Rory Darge against South Africa, who have a tall back row, for example? And Ben Muncaster's been going really well for Edinburgh. I can see him being a test match player as well. If you've got Jamie Ritchie or you've got Jack Dempsey or you've got a taller profile of a back row, does that mean that Rory Darge is on the bench? Because I think it goes back to your point that Sione Tuipulotu and Finn Russell are your 2 guaranteed starters, and Blair Kinghorn as well. And then everyone else, you're probably then thinking, well, you could put him in, you could put him in. But it's I am pumped for Sione Tuipulotu every time I've spoken to him. Anyone you speak to, he's a lovely human being. He's a professional, and he's doing it for Scotland. So it's not as if he is a journeyman and has come over and has just rocked up and he's taken the cash and he's fucking off. Like, he's done his apprenticeship. He's done it for Glasgow. He's won the URC with Glasgow. He loves it that much that he's brought his brother over. It's a big shift for them, but that's going to be with the romance of Scotland and the history as a country. And again, it's rich coming from me because I came from England to play for Scotland. But that is the one thing that we're lacking. But I've got no doubt about it. He's going to be great at his job. He's going to play brilliantly, and I think he'll take the captaincy by storm as well.
Has he got a kilt?
I'm sure he has.
And does he wear anything under his kilt?
I'm sure he does.
Well, if you're Scotland captain, you can't wear anything under your kilt. You've got to be a true Scotsman. So take the boxes off, get the old boy out, and stick your skirt on.
Predictions?
Ooh, Scotland by 12, I'm going to say.
Oh, I was going to say Scotland by 15, and I'll stick with that.
Yes, James.
It'll be a tough start for them. I think managing the game, get the set piece right, where again, Fiji, if they're lacking in one place, is around scrum and line out, and we'll be all right on the night.
Pod.
Rugby pod.